If you were to take a stroll down any British high street today, you would find yourself navigating a remarkably uniform landscape of global coffee chains, modern digital banks, and sterile, self-service fast food joints. Food is ordered via glowing touchscreens, collected in brown paper bags from workers behind plexiglass barriers, and consumed in a rush. It is an efficient, fast-paced, and largely impersonal experience designed for a world that is always on the move. The modern high street is a place of transit, not a destination. But if you grew up in Britain during the 1950s, 1960 seconds, or 1970 seconds, the high street held a completely different kind of magic. It was the absolute social heartbeat of the community. And nestled among the traditional family butchers, the dark wood chemist shops, and the quiet, respectable tea rooms, there was one destination that stood out like a bright, technicolor beacon of pure excitement. It was Wimpy. To an entire generation of Britons, Wimpy wasn't just a place to grab a quick bite to eat. It was a cultural revolution masquerading as a casual restaurant. Long before McDonald's crossed the Atlantic, before Burger King claimed its territory, and decades before the concept of American-style fast food became an ordinary part of daily British life, Wimpy was the undisputed pioneer. It introduced a grey, post-war Britain, a nation still recovering from the drab realities of wartime rationing and austerity, to the glamorous, thrilling world of the modern dining experience. The experience of stepping into a Wimpy bar for the very first time is a sensory memory that remains vividly burned into the minds of millions who lived through that era. It didn't look, smell, or feel like anything else on the British high street. Before Wimpy arrived, eating out in Britain generally fell into two distinct categories. You either visited an expensive, highly formal hotel dining room, or you went to a traditional, quiet ABC or Lion's Corner house for a cup of tea and a plain bun. These spaces were respectable, but they were also strictly traditional, quiet, and admittedly a bit dull. They belonged firmly to the pre-war world. Wimpy shattered that mold entirely. The moment you pushed open those glass doors, you were greeted by a vibrant explosion of color, light, and sound. The interior was a masterpiece of mid-century modern design. There were sleek, formica-topped tables in brilliant shades of primary red and cream. There were futuristic, rotating chrome bar stools upholstered in padded scarlet vinyl that caught the reflection of the bright overhead lights. And then, there was the aroma. For a public accustomed to the traditional British kitchen smells of boiled cabbage, roasting meats, and damp wool, the scent inside a Wimpy bar was intoxicatingly foreign. It was the rich, savory smell of seasoned beef sizzling on a flat-top steel griddle, the sweet fragrance of toasted brioche buns, and the sharp, vinegar tang of tomato ketchup. For the very first time, British teenagers and families didn't just feel like they were stepping into a restaurant, they felt like they were stepping directly into a glamorous Hollywood movie, right in the middle of their own local neighborhood. It was sophisticated, it was accessible, and it was entirely new. To understand the unique brilliance of the early Wimpy bars, you have to realize that they didn't actually start as a fast food restaurant in the way we think of them today. When Lions first licensed the Wimpy brand from its American creators in the 1950s, they knew that British consumers might be entirely overwhelmed by raw, loud American counter-service model. British diners valued decorum, table manners, and the traditional sit-down meal. So, Wimpy pulled off a magnificent cultural compromise. They took the quintessential American hamburger and dressed it up with traditional British politeness. When you walked into a Wimpy bar, you didn't stand in a chaotic queue at a massive counter to shout your order at a cashier. Instead, you were politely greeted by a waitress and directed to a comfortable booth or a sleek chrome counter stool. You were handed a beautifully printed, colorful menu, and your order was taken at the table with absolute courtesy. And then came the most delightfully British detail of all. The food was served on a heavy, real ceramic plate, accompanied by a genuine stainless steel knife and fork. For the first 2 decades of its existence, eating a Wimpy hamburger was strictly a cutlery affair. The idea of picking up a hot, greasy piece of meat with your bare hands and taking a direct bite out of it was considered completely uncivilized by the British public. You sat upright, You held your knife in your right hand and your fork in your left, and you politely cut your burger into neat, bite-sized pieces. The menu itself was a fascinating glossary of mid-century culinary innovation, packaged under names that became instantly legendary. At the heart of it all was the standard Wimpy Burger, which famously cost just 1 shilling when it first launched, a price that made a glamorous dining experience affordable to almost any teenager or working-class family. But as the 1960s rolled on, the menu expanded into a colorful tapestry of creative options. There was the iconic Wimpy Bender, a smoked Frankfurter sausage that was meticulously sliced along the edges so that when it hit the hot steel griddle, it curled around into a perfect, uniform circle, fitting flawlessly inside a round hamburger bun, topped with a ring of fried onion. There was the brunch Wimpy, a magnificent tower of seasoned beef, a fried egg, a slice of back bacon, and a portion of chips, bridging the gap between a classic British greasy spoon fry-up and an American diner classic. Every single dish was topped off with a generous squeeze of Wimpy's own proprietary tomato relish, squirted from a plastic bottle shaped like a giant, bright red tomato that sat proudly on every single table. For the burgeoning youth culture of the 1960s, the mods, the rockers, and the teenagers who finally had a bit of disposable income in their pockets, the Wimpy Bar became an absolute sanctuary. It was the first commercial space on the high street that didn't feel like it belonged to their parents. You could sit in a booth for hours with your friends, nursing a single bottle of Coca-Cola or a frothy coffee, listening to the latest pop hits drifting from a nearby transistor radio, and feel like you were right at the absolute center of the modern world. While the savory smell of the griddle drew you through the front doors, it was the sweet, dazzling architecture of the dessert menu that cemented Wimpy's status as a place of absolute legendary status. For a child visiting with their parents on a Saturday afternoon, or for a young couple on a weekend date, looking at the dessert section was like peering into a treasure chest of pure indulgence. And sitting at the absolute pinnacle of that menu, reigning supreme over all other sweets, was a dessert that felt almost mythic in its scale, the Knickerbocker Glory. To a modern audience accustomed to elaborate, over-the-top artisanal milkshakes and ice cream parlors, the Knickerbocker Glory might look like a classic sundae, but in post-war and mid-century Britain, it was a towering, magnificent work of culinary art that felt almost impossibly luxurious. The experience began with the presentation itself. A Knickerbocker Glory could not be served on a standard plate or in a simple bowl. It required an incredibly tall, heavy, fluted glass chalice that stood high above the tabletop, demanding the attention of every single diner in the room. As the waitress carried it toward your booth, you could see the beautiful, colorful geology of the dessert layered perfectly through the clear glass. It was a carefully constructed skyscraper of indulgence. At the very bottom lay a rich, concentrated pool of bright crimson strawberry or raspberry syrup. Above that sat a layer of tinned fruit cocktail, juicy pears, sweet peaches, and mandarin oranges which had been soaked in syrup. Next came alternating, generous scoops of velvety vanilla and strawberry ice cream, followed by another dramatic drizzle of fruit syrup that trickled down the inside of the glass. But the crowning glory was the top. The entire glass was capped with a mountain of freshly whipped cream, a generous dusting of colorful sugar sprinkles or chopped nuts, and a single, glistening, bright red black cherry pinned right at the peak. Piercing through the whipped cream at a jaunty angle was a crisp, fan-shaped wafer biscuit, standing like a flag on top of a conquered mountain. Eating a Knickerbocker Glory was an event in itself, a slow, methodical ritual that required specialized equipment. Because a standard dessert spoon would immediately disappear and get lost inside the towering chalice, the dessert was served with the uniquely long, slender, polished stainless steel spoon. Children would sit up straight, gripping the long handle, and carefully excavate their way through the layers. First, you politely nibbled the wafer biscuit. Then, you tackled the rich whipped cream and the cold, smooth ice cream. But the real magic happened halfway through the journey, when the melting ice cream began to blend with the tinned fruit and the intensely sweet fruit syrup at the bottom of the glass, creating a rich, creamy, and gloriously pink soup. You would use the long spoon to scrape every last drop from the bottom corners of the glass, the metal spoon making a loud, satisfying clink-clink sound against the crystal sides. It was sticky, it was sweet, and it was a status symbol of childhood joy. Ordering one meant it was a special day, a birthday, a past exam, or a rare treat from a grandparent. It was the ultimate high-street luxury, an unforgettable escape into sweetness that defined the very best of the Wimpy experience. As the calendar turned into the late 1960s and marched proudly into the 1970s, Wimpy entered its absolute golden age of commercial dominance. What had started as a single experimental counter inside a London Lyons corner house had transformed into an unstoppable national phenomenon. Wimpy bars were expanding at an astonishing rate, popping up on virtually every major high street, seaside promenade, and market square from the tip of Cornwall all the way to the north of Scotland. At its absolute peak, the company operated a staggering empire of over 1,000 restaurants across the United Kingdom. It was no longer just a trendy novelty for teenagers. It had become a completely foundational part of mainstream British family life. Saturday afternoon shopping trips were no longer complete without a family pilgrimage to the local Wimpy for a platter of benders and a round of frothy milkshakes. To anchor this massive national expansion and cement its place in the hearts of a younger generation, the company introduced a brilliant marketing masterstroke in the 1970s, the creation of their very own official brand mascot, the unforgettable Mr. Wimpy. Mr. Wimpy was a delightfully cartoonish, oversized character designed to instantly catch the eye of any child walking down the high street. He was styled affectionately after a traditional British Queen's Guard officer, featuring a massive, fluffy black bearskin hat that sat squarely over his giant, cartoonish face, a bright scarlet tunic with golden buttons, and a pair of crisp white trousers. Across the country, restaurants would hire local performers to don the giant, padded Mr. Wimpy costumes. On weekend mornings, he would stand proudly on the pavement outside the restaurant's front doors, waving to passing cars, shaking hands with wide-eyed toddlers, handing out bright red balloons, and posing for family snapshots. To the children of the 1970s, spotting Mr. Wimpy on the high street was the ultimate weekend thrill, a visual guarantee that a special treat was just moments away. Inside the restaurants, the company capitalized on this children's marketing boom by pioneering the concept of the organized high street birthday party. Long before modern indoor soft play centers or specialized party venues existed, having your birthday party at Wimpy was the absolute height of childhood sophistication. A dedicated long table would be booked at the back of the restaurant, adorned with colorful paper tablecloths, matching party hats, and plastic Wimpy badges. A chorus of waitresses would march out from the kitchen singing "Happy Birthday," carrying a massive tray loaded with customized Wimpy burgers, mountains of hot chips, and individual Knickerbocker Glories for every single guest. For the parents, it was an affordable, stress-free way to host a celebration. For the kids, it was an unforgettable afternoon of glamour, sweet treats, and independent fun. Wimpy had successfully woven itself completely into the fabric of British childhood milestones, establishing an emotional connection with its audience that seemed completely unbreakable. By the late 1970s and early 1980s, the winds of cultural and economic change were blowing fiercely across the British high street. The cozy, polite world of sit-down table service and ceramic plates was about to collide head-on with the hyper-efficient industrial powerhouse from across the Atlantic. In 1974, a corporate juggernaut had quietly opened its very first UK restaurant in Woolwich, London. That juggernaut was McDonald's, and it brought with it an entirely new definition of what a restaurant could be. Where Wimpy was leisurely and traditional, McDonald's was fast, loud, and blindingly efficient. The American corporate giant operated on a scale that British high street brands had simply never imagined. They utilized a revolutionary counter-service assembly line model, where customers stood in efficient queues, ordered directly from uniformed cashiers, and received their food wrapped in paper and tucked into cardboard boxes within a matter of seconds. Crucially, McDonald's introduced the concept of finger food to the British masses on a grand scale. They didn't offer knives, forks, or heavy ceramic plates. They actively encouraged diners to pick up their food with their hands, a casual, modern habit that appealed massively to a new generation of fast-paced, independent teenagers who found the older wimpy traditions a bit stuffy and slow. Furthermore, McDonald's possessed an absolute marketing empire, pouring millions of pounds into high-budget television advertising campaigns that completely captured the imagination of the youth. Against this slick, unstoppable corporate onslaught, Wimpy's charming, local eccentricities began to work against it. Because many Wimpy locations were operated by independent local franchisees, the quality and design of the restaurants varied wildly from town to town. Some locations remained beautifully pristine, while others began to look tired, dated, and trapped in the design trends of the late 1960s. The polite sit-down service model meant that tables couldn't be turned over quickly enough to match the soaring profit margins of the fast food counter model. In a desperate attempt to survive, Wimpy's parent corporate management launched a massive restructuring strategy in the 1980s. They began systematically dividing their empire into two distinct formats: traditional sit-down Wimpy bars and newly designed Wimpy counter service restaurants that mimicked the American style, abandoning the classic cutlery and plates. But for many consumers, the magic had already begun to fade. By trying to copy the American fast food giants, Wimpy risked losing the very thing that had made it unique in the first place: its distinctively British charm, its polite table manners, and its status as a special, leisurely high street destination. The golden arches were rising, and the original high street treat was being pushed into a fierce battle for survival.